At first, it looked like a routine case of missing shipments. Nothing seemed unusual. But one small detail didn't add up. Something in the records contradicted the timeline, and that inconsistency would lead investigators down a path they never expected. This story begins in a busy metropolitan shipping hub, a place where hundreds of shipments move through each day. Over several weeks, a number of high-value shipments disappeared. The company faced serious financial losses, and investigators were brought in to determine what happened, whether it was internal oversight, technical error, or something more deliberate. From the outside, the situation seemed straightforward, but as investigators would soon discover, the truth was far more complex. The first step was reviewing shipping logs and surveillance footage. At first glance, nothing seemed out of the ordinary, but subtle patterns began to emerge. Certain deliveries were consistently diverted at the same time and along the same routes. Some trucks arrived late, yet GPS records indicated they were on schedule. Warehouse staff noted minor discrepancies in package seals, seemingly insignificant at the time. Detectives knew that in every case, the smallest inconsistencies often hold the key. It was a puzzle where every missing piece mattered. The investigation deepened. Detectives divided the case into segments, tracking shipments, reviewing personnel, and analyzing digital logs. At first, some clues appeared irrelevant. Minor software glitches, delayed scans, misfiled shipping manifests. Yet patterns slowly became clear. These anomalies occurred with remarkable consistency. Each small discrepancy, each overlooked detail, was a breadcrumb leading investigators closer to the truth. Hours were spent cross-referencing timestamps, surveillance data, and delivery records. Every detail, no matter how minor, became crucial. One detective noted quietly, "Patterns aren't always obvious, but they never lie." Then a subtle but important clue emerged. A single GPS record from a delivery truck didn't match its expected route. At first, it was dismissed as a glitch, but as more discrepancies appeared, a pattern began to form. Shipments weren't just missing randomly. They were diverted in a predictable, methodical way. It was clever, quiet, and required careful observation to uncover. Detectives now had a working theory, but the case was far from solved. Not every lead led to the truth. Several false assumptions emerged. Perhaps a system error caused the discrepancies. Maybe new employees were unfamiliar with scanning procedures. Could software misconfigurations be to blame? Hours of analysis ruled out these possibilities. Detectives revisited each clue, questioning assumptions and following threads others had ignored. Every twist brought new questions. What appeared simple was anything but. The case demanded patience, observation, and logic. Days of analysis turned into weeks. Patterns were forming, but they were faint. Nothing was loud, nothing was obvious, and that made the case even more intriguing. Detectives focused on one guiding question. If the diversions weren't random, then someone had to be planning them. There were no dramatic mistakes, no careless errors, just quiet, calculated adjustments. Tiny route shifts, minor time changes, barely noticeable unless you looked closely. And investigators did. They layered timelines side by side. They compared activity logs across multiple months. They studied every entry that seemed too ordinary to attract attention. Slowly, a new pattern began to reveal itself. Every diverted shipment had a brief access log entry, never more than a few seconds long. It appeared harmless, a routine check-in, a casual status update, something anyone might overlook. But one detail stood out. The same user ID appeared again and again and again. Not constantly, just enough to stay invisible. At first, detectives hesitated to jump to conclusions. They questioned everything. Was the system mislabeling entries? Could the logs be delayed or duplicated? Was automated software triggering false events? Each possibility was tested. Each theory was eliminated. And yet, that same login continued to return, always nearby, always moments before each diversion. To confirm their suspicions, investigators took a careful approach. No confrontation, no accusations. The system was quietly placed under active observation. No one was notified. Nothing appeared different. The environment remained unchanged. The goal was simple. Watch. Wait. Let the truth reveal itself. Hours passed. Nothing moved. Then, a shipment update request appeared. Routine. Unremarkable. Until the route changed. A subtle redirection. Barely noticeable on the map, unless you knew where to look. And there it was. The same user login. The same access terminal. The same pattern repeating again. But this time, every second was recorded. Every keystroke was logged. Every trace led back to a single point. The final evidence wasn't dramatic. It was precise. Investigators reviewed the findings carefully. Not once, not twice, but until there was no room for doubt. When the interview finally took place, it was calm, measured, professional. No raised voices, no confrontation, just the facts presented clearly. The room was quiet, and slowly the defenses faded. Not in a moment of shock, but in a quiet acceptance that the trail of evidence was complete. The resolution was not a sudden twist. It was the result of patience, discipline, and careful observation. The case closed without drama because it didn't need any. In the end, investigators learned something important. Truth does not always reveal itself loudly. Sometimes it hides in routine actions, subtle patterns, and details others never think to question. And in this case, it was discovered not by chance, but by persistence, logic, and the unwavering belief that every small detail matters. Every small inconsistency mattered. A damaged seal, a mismatched GPS record, a misfiled log. Careful observation, thoughtful reasoning, and quiet persistence solved a case that initially seemed impossible. This story reminds us that in detective work, no detail is ever too small to consider. If you enjoy evidence-based detective storytelling, subscribe to the Forensic Detective Desk. We post new investigation narratives every day, walking you through mysteries, clues, and the reasoning behind each case.